Okay, so let's do a little housekeeping. First, I want to welcome everyone once again to our 2023, the last webinar of 2023. I know that this holiday schedule is so busy, and we so much appreciate you being here with us. My name is Vincent Medley. I am the Maddie's Director of Human Animal Support Services. Let me give you a few housekeeping notes before we get started. In order for you to chat with each other, please use the blue drop down in your chat box and switch it to everyone. Please keep chats on topic and please be kind. Then also, the webinar recording will be emailed to you within 3 days. If you can't find it, check your spam or visit humananimalsupportservices.org. And then lastly, stay tuned at the end to fill out a brief poll at the very end of the webinar. All right, so I just want to, before we get started tonight, I just wanted to acknowledge the panel that is here tonight, and they will introduce themselves. But I have the privilege of working with an extremely talented team of people that really in this world that where people, we pretty much live in the Zoom and online world, and having people that are so committed and to the work that we are doing at HASS and the work that you all are participating in as a whole, all of us in this movement has just been one of the greatest, I think, gifts of my career. And I am so very just proud and honored to be part of the team that we are that you'll see here tonight. And so they're going to loop you into all of the great stuff that they're doing. Tonight's webinar is Paws. Well, and I should end that by saying, so to the team and the panel that you'll be hearing tonight, thank you for all your work this year. And I look forward to all of the great work that we will be doing this coming year. So tonight's webinar is Pause for Celebration, a look into resources, tools, and the year ahead. We will hear from all of our division leads from the Human Animal Support Services Project, otherwise known as HASS, Maggie Lynch, Amanda Foster, Lauren Loney, and Eliza Torres. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to the presenters, and I will turn off my camera.
Sarah, you can go right to the next slide. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Lynch. I'm the Senior Director of Research and Development for Austin Pets Alive, and I head up the research and data team for HASS. And we're going to introduce just one of the tools that we developed this last year. And we chose this one to present because it sort of prefaces 2024, when we are going to turn a much sharper focus onto the H in HASS, the human side of the services that we will be working on. SROI is an acronym for Social Return on Investment, and it's a term that you use to communicate about and assess the social good that you do with any sort of activities. And in this case, the resource collection that we've built is based on the human-animal bond. This is not a lit review. This is a tool that Heather Kalman, our research coordinator, and I built with people who work in busy shelters in mind. It collects a lot of the evidence for why the human-animal bond is important and for cases where there is an obstacle to it. And the reason why we chose this tool as an important one is that more and more we're getting into the human welfare space. A lot of the people in that space don't truly appreciate the importance of the human-animal bond. And as we move more and more into trying to affect policy and funding around programs that include human welfare, we know that we have a higher bar in proposals to present evidence of the human-animal bond and to produce a lot of data, for instance, in grant proposals. The collection was designed with an audience in mind of very busy shelter professionals who may not have the time or resources to do a lot of this research. So we did the first several layers of research to save people a lot of time. And we also know you often don't have the access to the research databases and the journals that are behind paywalls. We actually have a collection of hundreds and hundreds of research studies and resources, but we wanted to be able to allow people to filter very quickly to what is of great practical use and things that we think are particularly useful for making the case for community-centered programs. Next slide. This is available on our website. You go to our data and research page on our website and scroll down to the bottom. You'll find a tile there that points you to this resource. And I'm just going to give a very quick overview of it. It's built in 2 sections. The top section goes over all the benefits that people are discovering and researching about the human-animal bond and how it is so important. The second section is about research about obstacles that get in the way of human-animal bond, especially among vulnerable groups of people. And some of those are articles on solutions to overcoming those obstacles. And then at the very bottom of it, there is a full reference list. Next slide. So each section under each title is arranged around 3 areas. In each one, there is a topic highlight, and Heather and I chose a research paper or a resource that we felt to be the most comprehensive or the most practical use, or just the best resource that we felt for representing that section. And so if you don't have any more time than to just choose one thing to read or use as a citation, that's the one we would recommend. And then there are 2 more sections, one for research papers and one for resources. This is just a small part of the domestic violence section. It is much longer than this, but in each of those sections, the research means papers that researchers have published. And so they include the methodology, the limitations of the research, the conclusions of it. It's a much more comprehensive view. And those are usually considered more relevant when you are applying for grants or writing policy papers, because they're considered a higher quality and of more use. And yet there are a lot of other sources out there on the human-animal bond that are not quite at the level of a research paper, but that may produce the statistics or conclusions from that research, but they don't go over how you evaluate the research with the methodology and the limitations, etc. Everywhere where you see the font in blue, that is an active link so that you can go to the full text of the source. But you don't have to. We realized just how busy people are. And so we annotated all of the sources that we put in here. And if you want to, say, build a very quick slide deck and you need a very quick statistic, you can just scan through the annotations we made, because we pulled out what we found to be most relevant or most important from the resource. And we highlighted in boldface quotations that we think are particularly important. So I hope you'll all use this. It's freely available on our website. I'd love feedback on it if you are using it. It is a living document. It is not going to sit where it is. Every quarter, Heather and I are watching research as it's published and is coming in, and we will be adding to this. And as it gets bigger and bigger, we'll probably filter out some things that we think people are not using. But we hope that this is really useful to anybody who needs to make the case for a human-centered program that also helps pets. That's a very quick overview of it. If you have any questions, I think someone is putting my email in the chat. I welcome questions and feedback about this. And now the other part of data and research team spends a lot of time collecting and analyzing data. And so Amanda Foster is going to talk about the dashboards that we create from that data collection.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Foster. I'm the Assistant Director of Implementation and analysis, and I oversee our data direct support team that works with our pilot shelters. Today, I'm going to highlight the dashboards as one of the big projects that we've been working on over this year. We have quite a few different dashboards that we create and maintain and are continuing to build. A lot of work goes into these behind the scene, mostly from Angela Gates, our data and digital tools coordinator, working with our data engineer and data analyst, Gareth Meredith and Tom Kramer. The main dashboards that we create are monthly pilot director dashboards. These are tools that we create for our pilot shelters that we're working with, and are continuing to build the capabilities out as we grow as a project. We also have in the works daily pilot director dashboards to look at more real-time operational data that is updated daily rather than monthly. And we also do a lot of individual analysis and unique dashboard building for shelters that are looking at very specific questions and topics. And we use this information not only within our project to make decisions across our different divisions, but also when we are working with the shelters that we work with. Next slide. And very quickly, a little bit of information about where this data comes from. We work closely with 22 pilot organizations across the country, which make up over 40 different shelter locations. We do a lot of work in tracking, analyzing, and contextualizing that data. So what we may not have in quantity of organizations, we make up for it in quality and a real deep understanding of what that data means to those shelters. And we use that information within the pilot shelters and then also across our project to inform program implementation, advocacy for changing policy, Lauren's team, communication strategies within certain communities, and understanding how to best budget and staff different types of programs. One reason why this data set is so important that's feeding into our dashboards and our work is that we have a lot of animal level data that allows us to really dig into the why behind the trends that we're seeing and do things like length of stay calculations or pets that have multiple returns into shelters. We do a lot of work in validating that data and meeting with shelter staff leadership regularly to ask questions and just gain a deeper understanding of what's going on. And this is an example. I didn't have time to go through the whole dashboard. I think this team would have kicked me off because I will just talk and talk and talk about it. But the thing I wanted to highlight as one of the things that we're able to really dive into and that I thought was interesting was we're looking at return time periods, so pets that are adopted and then returned, looking at how long they were out of the shelter, and across the shelters we're seeing 2 days, which points to an opportunity to follow up and offer adopters additional support and ask questions and offer just an extra hand in finding out if we can keep that pet home. When we drove down deeper into the reasons that pets were being returned, the number one return reason was owner household preferences. So that's things like my roommate didn't get along with the dog, or the cat is scratching my furniture, things like that. And we decided to look at that separately. We saw that that's actually a cause that's returning in 1 day instead of 2 days. So it's really important to drill down into why that pet is coming home. And that really points to even following up maybe sooner. The second return reason was nuisance behaviors. So that's really not a good fit category. And barking, pulling on leash, things like that, that we were seeing return in 4 days. So things like that we're looking at are programs specific, counseling specific, opportunities that we outline for the shelters, and just an example of how we're able to add more context and dig deeper into this data. I also added field versus over-the-counter stray intake trends over the last few years. I thought this was a really interesting topic that we've been highlighting on our dashboard to think about when thinking about where to put resources, funding, and strategy around reunification training for stray pets, whether that's reunification in the field, reunification efforts in your community at the point of intake. And that's what that slide is there. Maggie, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to point out to everyone that although we built these for the HASS shelters, we are learning a lot about what is the most important data to collect, what's the most important to analyze, and so that this can serve the wider industry. And I think we're one of the first who has done a really deep dive into animal level data. We can even do an analysis around age and size and very detailed things about outcome and intake. And so we are also producing a whole series of data insights. They come out every couple of weeks that are based on these dashboards and the data that we analyze. So we don't intend for this to be only specific to HASS. It's just an example of all the powerful uses you can have around data. And so the publications and the data insights will be spreading that wider. That's all.
Thanks, Maggie and Amanda, for that great overview. I feel really lucky to work in an organization that has such a strong drive to create data-based and data-driven policy and programmatic recommendations. So my name is Lauren Loney. I am the staff attorney and policy specialist for HASS and American Pets Alive. And today I'm going to chat a little bit about our upcoming legislative strategy for 2024 and get into a few resources that we have to offer the public on how to engage in policy advocacy. So Maggie mentioned this earlier, that we are taking we're excited to be taking a pretty strong stance on focusing on the human part of the human-animal bond, and that extends to policy. We have already been engaging in more human-oriented or human-animal bond-oriented policies this year, but in 2024, we're very excited to take it to sort of an even higher level. And all of this policy platform that you see here is truly grounded in existing research in human-animal bond, causes and consequences of poverty, and other related human research that we know impacts people and their pets. This policy platform is also grounded in our own data collection through our HASS community values survey data and the pilot shelter intake data that Amanda and Maggie just discussed. So I'm not going to read this word for word, but our policy platform for 2024 is going to be grounded in advocating on legislation addressing the root causes of pet overpopulation, relinquishment, and sort of misguided definitions and laws around pet neglect or cruelty. Our work will be focused on acknowledging and attempting to mitigate the ways that traditional companion animal welfare law has contributed to over-policing and negatively impacted Black and Brown and other marginalized communities that are pet owners. And at the same time, working primarily at the local level to create a legal framework for more robust community-centric animal sheltering that really brings animal services into the continuum of care along with human services, so they're not so siloed from one another. And then finally, within the shelter, we have a policy platform focused on mitigating the consequences of chronic underfunding of particularly government shelters and the negative impacts that has both on animals' well-being in the shelter, but also staff's well-being in the shelter. Next slide. So these are our 5 specific policy platforms. You'll see that they're really grounded in what research and academia has termed One Health. So this recognition that environmental health, animal health, and human health are all interconnected, and that when you positively affect one element of this triad, you will inherently positively affect the other 2 elements of this triad. And One Health is really well recognized in the research space, and it's even becoming much more well recognized in the programmatic space. And we really want to be very cognizant of pushing that into the policy space as well. Go ahead. So one of the really amazing tools that we have to offer for the public is, to the best of my knowledge, the only for free, publicly available animal welfare related legislative bill tracker in the country. So if you go to our HASS website and you navigate to the policy and government relations page, you'll see this animal policy group legislative bill tracker, and the password is password protected, but the password to access it is right there on the website. If you go to the next slide, when you go into this bill tracker, you'll see a map of the country with all the states shaded in various colors of red and pink. And what that means is the darker the red, the more bills have been filed and are being tracked in this bill tracker. And this bill tracker doesn't just cover companion animal welfare issues. It runs the gamut of animal welfare laws. So whether you're looking at shelter specific laws, which probably most folks on this call would be, or you're looking at puppy selling pet store related laws, dangerous wild animals, things related to veterinary care, there's basically a whole myriad of animal related bills that are of interest to all of the folks that are engaged in this space that you can find access to. Next slide. And when you, I didn't have time to take y'all through the bill tracker live, which would have been ideal. But when you click on the bill tracker, you can click on your state on that map. And what will populate below the map is a list of all the bills. So you can see I'm from Texas, so I selected Texas. And this is an example of what you would see on the screen. So you have various columns of pieces of information about each piece of legislation. And I just want to highlight a couple of really, really useful and unique resources that we have on our bill tracker. So most bills come with a pre-populated bill summary. That's not always the case, but it is often the case. And what Animal Policy Group does for us is they create a custom bill summary that's easy to read, easy to digest, and you can go into this bill tracker and read this custom bill summary to have a better idea of what sometimes really complicated legislation is actually doing. And then if you are just having a few minutes to scroll through the bills in your state, and there's one piece of information that you should keep an eye on, that's if you scroll all the way to the right, there's a last action column. And that's really important because it's going to tell you where that bill is in the legislative process and give you an idea of when legislative hearings are and when are going to be the best opportunities for you to engage. Next slide. So in alignment or in sort of collaboration with the toolkit or with the bill tracker, which is going to give you access to all of these bills across the country. Another big focus of ours is to really help bring some professionalism in the policy workspace for animal shelters to engage in legislative advocacy. It's really hard when you don't have dedicated staff to do local or state or federal level legislative advocacy. It can be kind of an intimidating process to get started with. And we created this government communications toolkit in collaboration with individuals who work in the policy space from multiple organizations. And this is going to be, it's again, available for free. You can download it from the HASS website. And this is going to be sort of your one-stop shop for how to get started with legislative advocacy. So it's going to go over rules for legislative engagement as it relates to how government or government shelters or nonprofit shelters with government contracts can and cannot engage. And it goes through a little bit of sort of demystifying the notion of whether or not nonprofits can engage in legislative advocacy and lobbying. And the truth is that nonprofits absolutely can engage in lobbying. You just have to be careful with how much lobbying you do relative to the rest of your nonprofit activities. So it goes into details about how to have a sustainable legislative practice. So looking at how do you engage year in, year out at legislative sessions, which can be difficult? How do you create policy-based coalitions with other animal welfare organizations where maybe you haven't before? And importantly, how do you engage with legislators in an effective way? Vincent, I see you have popped on the screen. Do you want to?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
You are so kind. Thank you for recognizing my gigantic head. We have a question from Donna Miller.
Sure.
You have about the database. You have pending laws in the database, but not existing laws / regulations. Is that what it is?
Correct. We do have bills that have passed recently in that database, but it's not a comprehensive tool. Reviewing every state level law or federal level law, impacting our work. But it will tell you, we do have bills that have passed in recent legislative sessions on there that are still on the tracker. There are various resources for existing laws and regs. Donna, if you're looking for a specific state or you have specific questions, I'd be happy to help. There are, different substantive areas of animal welfare law. So whether you're talking about animal cruelty, you're talking about captive wildlife, or you're talking about, issues related to hunting, things like that. There's going to be different resources for each of those substantive categories. So are there any other questions that I'm missing here? Oh, I see a question from Michael. How do you address when the law conflicts with shelter policy? That really is a case-by-case basis. It depends on whether the shelter policy, like if it's internal policy, then the best process is to just do a case-by-case assessment to understand where those discrepancies lie and how to bring things into how to make everything cohesive. So if there's a specific question, I'd be happy to answer that offline, Michael. But I only have a few minutes left, so just run through the last couple of items on the toolkit. So just really quickly, we have really great tips and examples for creating and presenting on testimony, and then a myriad of sample documents and additional resources. And I just want to give one more quick plug that we do have an Advocacy 101 training that we have done for a couple of our working groups that really go into the details of what this government communications toolkit has to offer. And I would be more than happy to chat with anybody here on this call who thinks that their staff or a group that they work with might be interested in that kind of training. I think it's really important to be able to take all of y'all's experience, what you know about your communities, and how you see various issues impacting the people and pets in your communities, and communicate that effectively to your lawmakers. So Sarah just dropped my email in the chat, so please feel free to reach out. And with that, I'll turn it over to Eliza.
Thank you, Lauren, and such wonderful work that all of my colleagues are doing. I hope that everyone watching this presentation is really just so excited about this. So I am Eliza Torres. I am the Maddie's Education and Implementation Manager here at HASS. I have been with HASS for almost 3 years. So I have seen a lot of iterations of our resources and the work that we are doing, and they just keep getting better and better. So y'all are here at just the right time. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a broad overview today for our resources. We did a little bit of a deep dive in the previous presentations, and so now I'm just going to back us up a bit. So in 2023, we completed a website refresh through our marketing team, and so you might notice our website looks a little bit different than it previously did. And with that new website came a brand new resource center, and I'm going to go through some of the resources in that resource center, how to use it, and where to find things in the next few slides. We also spent some time creating new toolkits and updating existing toolkits to make sure that they are as impactful and effective for everyone using them as possible. We've collaborated with many animal services experts, some human services experts, and we are developing some really cool new tools. So this is a screenshot of what our website looks like when you hover over the Resource Center tab at the very top. I know that our Resource Center link was directly put in the chat, but if you're just on our main website, this is what the hover looks like. So you can see we've got some featured content on the side, implementing the HASS model, and it has our 4 HASS pathways underneath, some available digital tools, and that will grow over time. Some information on HASS partners and pilots, including Maddie's university courses, the Pet Forum, our Job Alikes, and some collaborative resources. And then we have latest from HASS, blogs, webinars, industry news, and the podcast. If you click enter the resource center, it will take you to our general resource center page, but you can also select directly from our HASS pathways, pet support, lost pet reunification, supported self-rehoming, and intake to placement to get to those specific pages. So in our HASS Resource Center, we have a couple of different things. We have the pathways split out individually. And so when you select a pathways getting started button, you will see something that looks a little bit like this. And so we have all of the different toolkits relevant to that HASS pathway available to you. And they are filtered in that way through every single pathway to make it a little bit easier to implement programs on specific topics. We also have a section in the Resource Center towards the bottom that are our foundational guides. This includes that really amazing government communications guide that Lauren was just talking about, our philanthropy and fundraising guide, basics of how to pilot a program, and a complete user guide for pets.findhelp.com. And now I'm just going to take a little bit of a deep dive into resource highlights from our pathways. So this is a resource highlight from Pet Support Services. This is community ecosystem mapping. This is an incredibly valuable implementation tool if you are looking to not only identify programs and services that are available in your community, but to start building partnerships with those programs and services. And so this has an overview, what is it, how to get started, some considerations with gathering these community resource information pieces. We have worksheets, we have templates, we have everything that you need to make a really solid, comprehensive map of all the resources that are available in your community. As you can see off to the side here in pet support, I just took a small snippet of the information that we have, and you can see we've got integrating veterinary social work, cold weather preparedness guide, remote customer service recommendations. And so there are tons of resources available to you, and there are more and more all the time. Next slide. So for lost pet reunification, I wanted to really briefly highlight our 48-hour lost pet reunification program. This was something that we piloted with our pilot organizations last year, and we have communication guides, sample talking points, a text and email communication template, text platform recommendations, how to get started, and basic FAQs. So if you're looking for any information on starting a 48-hour lost pet reunification program, this guide is incredibly helpful. In addition to this, you can see off to the side, we've got field services return checklists. We've got a lost animal checklist for shelter staff, reunification for lost and found cats specifically. So I definitely highly recommend checking all of these out once this webinar is over. Next slide, please. So our resource highlight for supported self-rehoming is rehoming technology at a glance. Rehoming technology is incredibly valuable as you are implementing this type of programming. And so we broke down the 3 primary rehoming platforms that we are seeing used by fees, by the primary audience, who manages the profiles, is spay neuter required to list the pet. We've got some prerequisites, we have some implementation guides as available, and this can just get you started if your organization does not already do rehoming, to consider what external technology solution might be an appropriate fit for you if you don't want to go through something like a Facebook or social media group. As you can see off to the side here, we've got our supported self-rehoming pathway toolkit and a transfer of ownership agreement. Next slide, please. Okay, and our last resource highlight is for our intake to placement pathway. This is a new iteration of some resources that were previously available. So this is our foster-centric programming guide. If you're familiar with our website, before our website refresh, you may have seen somewhere between 6 to 10 foster resources that were individual in our resource library. This is now one comprehensive guide that has all of those resources in one place so that you don't have to skip around. It has the foster-centric sheltering overview, personnel options, a foster application template, emergency foster plea templates, data collection, and behavior foster programming, all in one easy to access place. As you can see from the screenshot off to the side, it's also got a sample organizational chart and some video overview examples. On our left here, you can see some of our other intake to placement resources. We've got an animal placement goal setting guide, conversation-based adoptions and transportation programming, and transforming a shelter clinic into a foster clinic. So with all of that, I hope that you go to our resources on our website, because we do have a lot of really exciting new, updated, and old, if you're looking for some previous ones, up on our website. And all of these resources have culminated into what is coming in January 2024, which is the HASS Playbook. So the HASS Playbook is a complete collection of how-to guides. There are over 120 of them, created to establish a foundation and implement programs in all 4 of our HASS pathway elements. So we have taken all of the resources that have come from our previous HASS collaborative groups, from our staff developed resources, guides that I have personally developed, and we have created an incredibly comprehensive how-to guide that has foundations, all 4 of our HASS pathways, and very easy to access steps to getting started. It has a range of options. If you don't have a ton of resources available to you, it has volunteer options. If you do have a lot of resources available to you, it has options for that as well. And so you can sort of choose your own adventure to implement all the pieces of this HASS Playbook. The HASS Playbook tool is the super exciting part, because this is going to be a tool that allows self-assessment from organizations so that you can evaluate your current operations. And then once you respond to this self-evaluation, it will spit out a customized results page with guides for each question to help get you implementing this program or enhancing a program that you may already have. And so this self-evaluation tool will be broken into foundations and all 4 of our pathways. So there will be 5 self-evaluations. You can take them all at once. You can take them one at a time if you'd like to go a little bit slower. And you will have complete access to your results page with the customized results and the entire section playbook, so you can reference it later. So this is coming in January 2024. Vincent, I think this is you.
Thank you. I was all caught up in the chat. And there was a question in the chat, Eliza, about whether or not the playbook is going, let me see, from Michael. Will it have guide to developing how to seek grants?
That is a good question. I think any information related to philanthropy and fundraising will be found in our philanthropy and fundraising toolkit that already exists. However, the really wonderful part about this playbook and the resources that are in it is that each guide that we are creating comes with research examples, and it comes with data tracking recommendations as applicable, and you can use that research and those data tracking recommendations to really build your case for grant applications, for funding applications. And so while it won't say specifically how to seek out grants, our philanthropy toolkit likely will do that. It will give you a really, really solid foundation into building cases for fundraising in the future.
Right. Thank you so much, Eliza, and thank you to the rest of the panel. And I also want to thank the HASS community for your contributions and for the to all of our tools and resources. We recognize that although we're a core team here, that the tools and the resources that we've built were built in collaboration with hundreds of animal welfare professionals across the country, and in fact even outside of the United States and Canada, Australia, and in Africa. And so we really appreciate all of your work, and we just look at ourselves and we hope that we are being good stewards of the work and the collaboration that all started back in 2020 when HASS was just an idea that came to fruition. So thank you for being here tonight, and especially for our incredible presenters. Thank you once again, you all. I look forward to seeing you on our many Zoom meetings. And as a reminder, the webinar recording will be mailed to you within 3 days, business days. In a moment, you'll get a brief poll about this webinar that will pop up. So to let us know what your thoughts were about tonight. And then keep an eye out in the email, because this is our last one of the year, our last webinar of the year for the 2024. We have some amazing stuff in store for you for 2024. We're going to start off big and keep the momentum going of HASS and community-centric programming and all the work all of you all are doing out there. So please keep in touch and don't hesitate to interact with us. So with that, I will say, see you soon, and have a happy holidays, everyone.